What's going on, saddle hunters? Welcome to the Full AJ. If you've seen any of my other videos, specifically the Saddle Hunters Back Up Your Device, I'll leave a link for that here. You know that I'm about safety and about bringing good information into this community. I come from a mountaineering, mountain guiding background, and safety in the mountains is huge, and I think that also transitions into safety while saddle hunting. One of the things that I think that we should not have to compromise on is whether or not our saddles are safe versus comfortable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate the importance of the iliac crest in a saddle, and by doing that I'm going to start with showing you what it looks like in a rock climbing harness, how that's properly supposed to fit, how it's not properly supposed to fit. Then I'm going to show you in my first prototype design what it looks like with the proper fitting for safety versus what it would look like for the proper fit for comfort. And then I will lastly show you what it looks like in the Outsider Saddle System in terms of how I was able to come up with a system that was both comfortable and safe. I'm also going to talk about 3 specific incidences or situations in saddle hunting where I think that this aspect of things is really important in terms of whether or not we're going to flip upside down. It's unlikely, yes, just as it's unlikely in climbing and mountaineering and everything as well, but accidents happen, right? So let me go ahead and demonstrate what it looks like in the rock climbing harness first. Before I do that, I'll go ahead and show you. So my pants are on where I normally wear them. I am a little bit of a freak of nature, as in I have a really high hip bone. So my iliac crest sits probably 1.5 inches or 2 inches above where my belt is. So if I wore, my pants where my belt line or where my iliac crest was, I would look really funny. So I'll go ahead and put the climbing harness on now, and I'll show you the importance of having it in that proper position. Okay, I've got my rock climbing harness on now, or climbing harness, rock and ice. So I've got this in the proper position above my iliac crest, tightened down where it's snug, and I can get 2 fingers in, and if I turn them, they start to fold over on themselves. And this is where it's important, right? If I pull down on these gear loops, I can't shrug myself out of this harness right now. Now if I unloosen this, had a quick phone call. So as I was saying, if I loosen this belt and I bring it below my iliac crest and then I retighten it back down, so again the top of my iliac crest now is down here, I can easily wiggle that harness right off. I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate the same thing with the first prototype model that I had created while looking at designing saddles to kind of give you an example of what that looks like in a more applicable situation, or a more applicable piece of equipment rather. Alright, I've got my first prototype on, and I've got it above my iliac crest where if I pull down, it's not going anywhere. Now, if you look at this, it's riding right up. That's not comfortable at all. I had to change my design completely because of that. And I had found this in other saddles on the market as well. When I have that above my iliac crest, it's not extremely comfortable. Now if I were again to loosen this and put it in a spot where it's going to be a little bit more comfortable down here, and then I go and I were to get upside down somehow, it's a little bit easier for it to come off again. So now I'll show you what that looks like in the Outsider Saddle System and how I was able to kind of bridge that gap between safety and comfort. So now with the Outsider Saddle System, I've got the waist belt above my iliac crest here, and I've got my saddle part here. So when there's no compromise in this between the safety aspect of things and the comfort. I'm really comfortable with how this sits. What I really prefer to do with this one is I keep my leg loops tight to keep the saddle down where I want it to be. But I can pull down on this and I'm not coming out because it's catching on my iliac crest. The only thing that's moving down is the part that I'm leaning on or sitting on, depending on whether I'm sitting or leaning at that point during my time in the saddle, which I go back and forth between both. So what are some situations that we're going to actually see while saddle hunting where we might get flipped upside down and have this be an actual issue for us? The three that I could think of off the top of my head are, if you're one sticking and you haven't quite flipped your lineman's belt up, right? Your lineman's belt up, you're climbing up to it, and it's at your waist level, and you tend to flip. Depending on how tight you have your lineman's belt, there's a potential for you to flip upside down. Small potential, but there's still a potential. Misstepping or missing your step while you're on your platform, or if you have a ring of steps and you fail to step. Most of us humans, we're top heavy in general, and our tendency when we fall, if we're leaning, is to continue to lean backwards. So that can create an inversion right there. And then rappelling. I see it a lot of times with people who are rappelling who are really new at it. They go backwards, especially if you have your bridge really long while you're rappelling and you go back. When I'm rappelling and when I'm climbing, I have my bridge line really small. I have it pretty close to the waist there. But that's another way that you can actually flip upside down. So those are three types of situations in saddle hunting that we might encounter where we might go upside down. I hope this video is helpful. I hope it saves you from, getting hurt, honestly. That's the big thing, is I want everybody to realize that we can be safe with our saddles and be comfortable at the same time. Thanks again for watching the full AJ. If you like this video, like and subscribe. I greatly appreciate it. As you can see, the background changed a little bit in the time of this filming. I got my machine. I'm really happy to start sewing. Have a great day, folks.